So, I have a question for you. Is a year and a half is a lot or a little for a writing career? What can one achieve in such a short period? You'd say probably not much. However, Stanley G. Weinbaum, whose career was exactly that long, or rather that short, has managed to go down in science fiction history forever. Hi, I'm Nick Hein, and on this channel I'm overloading my brain trying to talk with crappy accent and very bad grammar about books and whatever things related to the writing and reading. By the way, if you will hear some weird noises at the background during this video, that's one of my cats thrashing around the room while I'm trying to record some stuff. So, for us, living in the year 2025, or maybe 2026 if somebody is happening to watch this next year, I doubt it, but who knows, the technological abundance is the part of the everyday's life, to the point that we can hardly even remember how the life was before everything of this came into our life. And the younger generations, of course, can't even imagine that. I mean, I'm as technologically dumb as I am, is shooting this video and will later edit it single-handedly with a pretty simple setup and non-existent budget. While when I was a kid back in the 70s, the only way to do something like this was to use a huge studio with a lot of bulky, hyper-expensive equipment like cameras, lights and whatnot, and a lot of human labor. Naturally, our modern conceptions and perceptions of what sci-fi is are basically at the same spot. High technologies, super science, weird aliens, alien worlds, intergalactic travel. We take all of that as a given fact. Because, you know, of course, that's how the science fiction should be, right? But don't forget that the thing we call the modern science fiction was born and forged at the very different times. Like really different. Like this. And like this. Those were the times when the golden age of science fiction took off. And one of the pioneers who established the foundation was the Stanley Weinbaum. Stanley Groman Weinbaum was born in 1902. Published his first story, A Martian Odyssey, in 1934, and at the end of 1935 he passed prematurely from a lung cancer. During this year and a half he managed to publish about 24 short stories, and after his death his two short novels, The New Adam and Black Flame, were also published. We can only guess how great as a sci-fi writer he might have become had he lived longer, because his works, those few which remained, are nothing short of a true sci-fi greatness. Of course, today, almost 100 years later, Weinbaum's stories about adventures on the planets and satellites of the solar system may seem naive in many ways. For example, I'm talking about the jungles on the Venus, which was actually a pretty popular sci-fi trope for the times, or intelligent life on Mars and on the satellites of the gas giants. Our science and technology has gone so far that Weinbaum probably could not even imagine what our world would look like in the 21st century. You can make a point that the progress made a wrong turn from the old-school sci-fi writer's perspective, with us being consumed with the hand gadget technology almost to the point of no return. But that's a whole different topic, not really relevant right now. But here's the most interesting thing. When I read his stories, I don't have that feeling of cringely outdated pulp sci-fi, as I did, for example, while reading Hamilton's The Star Kings with its lampwork starships, which is also a great book, by the way, just with the little bit different vibes. Weinbaum is so talented and so imaginative, especially when creating very lively and colorful characters, so when you're reading his stories you almost forgetting and probably missing all the technological atavisms which are in the stories, but you can barely tell that they are there. My initial introduction into the Weinbaum stories happened almost 30 years ago, but until recently I had no idea, although I reread them several times, that they were written not just simply long ago. My guess was something like 60s, but almost at the beginning of the science fiction as a genre. His imagination was breaking the limits. In fact, he was the first author who moved away from depicting the aliens as vicious, bloodthirsty conquerors, which was pretty much the standard in the golden era of pulp sci-fi of the 30s. Back then, the trend started by the Herbert Wells in his War of the Worlds, which is also an awesome book, an absolute classic, was absolutely dominating everything written about the contact between the humans and the aliens. Moreover, he was the first who tried to explore the possibility of existence of intelligent race so different that human cannot even comprehend it, that we cannot even find the meaningful way to contact, to communicate with it, like in his short stories The Martian Odyssey and The Lotus Eaters. And yet in his stories a positively tuned minds are still able to establish some sort of communication between two very, very different species. It's hard to imagine these days when we are barely able, if we even do at all, to establish communication between ourselves. But Weinbaum obviously was more open-minded about it. Isn't that a thing of hope and beauty? However, Weinbaum did not limit his talent at planetary adventures. Like so many of the Golden Age sci-fi writers, he was all over the place. The circle of time and the possibility of influencing it in the Circle Zero. Hints at the prospect of genetic engineering in Proteus Island. And post-apocalyptic motives in the posthumously published novel Black Flame, which clearly resonated, in my opinion, later in Dying Earth series by Jack Vance. Modern readers and sci-fi fans, well, those who at least aware that such a writer have ever existed, assessing Weinbaum's legacy in different ways, in different approaches. Some say that his contribution to the development of the science fiction is exaggerated. Others consider him one of the founding fathers of the genre. But there is no doubt that we were deprived of many beautiful, magnificent works of science fiction because he passed so prematurely. And it's definitely no coincidence that Weinbaum was awarded in 2008 Cordwainer Smith Rediscovery Award, the prize given to writers whose work has been undeservedly forgotten or undervalued. But these are all just my words, which should not be taken for granted. So, why don't you make up your own opinion and read the Stanley Weinbaum's great stories? As for me, I'm thanking you for watching this video. This was Nick Hein. See you soon.